looks like we've reached 3 o'clock. Ashanti, do you want to take us off? And then any intros or anything?
Sure. Um, so I'm sorry, this is my first time doing this. So, everyone, this is Alice Yang. She is a production assistant at Titmouse. She has worked on a few projects. Would you like to talk to us about those projects?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Alice. I go by she, her pronouns. I connected with Ashanti over Instagram. And I think really quick, could you let me know what this club is about and what you guys normally do?
So, we are a mix of women in animation as well as the Animation Guild at ECU, which is East
Oh,
Carolina
gotcha.
University. So typically everyone that's in here currently is either an animation student or a illustration student as well.
Mm-hmm.
We tend to do a lot of networking, workshops, stuff to be able to help our students break into the animation world. So
Awesome. And so I'm assuming there's like a mixed level of grade levels here?
yes, there are.
Aw- Sounds good. Okay, cool. I can do a brief self intro and maybe go into a little bit about my journey. Unfortunately, I had an urgent work meeting that came up, so I'll have to leave a little bit early. So I'll try and keep my bit a little bit short and then give the floor up to you guys for any questions that you guys may have, because I think that's much more valuable than me talking about myself. Um, So hi, I'm Alice. Um, I was I mainly grew up in Boise, Idaho, and that's where I'm currently located. I went to university at the Ohio State University, so I moved over there for 4 years to learn animation. Over there, I majored in what they called art and technology within their fine arts program. It was very interesting. But within there, I founded a club called Art and Technology Club, where similar to you guys, it was focused on helping people within my major, my specialization, into breaking into the industry. Through there, I gained a lot of experience, production-wise, that are really transferable to the skills that I use at work right now. And along with that, I have the creative skills from my classes. So that kind of meshed together really well. Leading that club also connected me with a lot of professionals within the animation sphere. And then how I broke in was a bit, to make a long story short, during my junior year, I went to a lot of um, virtual seminars and a lot of animation workshops because it was in the height of COVID. I'm actually not much older than much of you guys. I graduated May of 2022. So during my junior year, that would have been 2021. And through there, I made a few connections with animation speakers and I learned a little bit more about the industry. I learned about the production department, and I'll go into that a little bit later. And so I was like, wow, this sounds really great. This kind of combines the skills that I learned from managing a club and also the creative aspect in a really nice way that I felt like was a good fit for me. And so when senior year rolled around, I started applying to a lot of internships and entry level jobs, such as PA jobs and PC jobs. So I was kind of juggling a few things. And so it was back, I think it was in December, I applied to a bunch of different things. That was like my first big push in applying to things. And so I think I was really gearing for either entry level positions or internships that were targeted for the summertime. So really kind of starting early and getting a head start on that. Um, None of those really led to anything, I will admit, but it did give me a lot of experience in applying to jobs. And each time that I applied, I changed my resume, I changed my cover letter, and improved those. And then, so with each application, I got better and better. I applied to Titmouse for a PA position. It didn't really go anywhere, which is fine. But I also applied for an internship in February. And so For those of you who are unaware of the Nickturnship program, it's a program by Nickelodeon, and they have various different internship opportunities through there. I have a friend right now who just went through it. It's really awesome. And in February, I applied, and I think it wasn't until like probably like April until they got back to me. So it was like a whole 2 month wait until I heard back. But when I did hear back, I found that I had an interview, which was very exciting. So I interviewed for the Nickturnship, but in the end, I didn't make it. I was pretty disheartened, but through that interview, I made some connections. I really connected really well with the team that was I was interviewing for, and just kind of as a twist of fate, one person who interviewed me, she left Nickelodeon and went to Titmouse. And her new show at Titmouse was hiring for a PA position. And so I was kind of fresh on her mind. And she was looking through a list of old applicants to Titmouse. So kind of everything lined up. So she saw my old application for Titmouse, remembered me from recently from that interview for Nickelodeon. And she reached out to me and asked if I wanted to interview. And from there, that's how I got my PA job. So it's kind of being very persistent and keeping an open mind and making good connections. And then as for what I do at my PA job, I'll keep it pretty short and simple. I work in the production department, and so that is kind of the linkage between the different departments. So I used to work in the story department, which is working with storyboard artists, episodic directors, and animatic editors. And so I work between those departments. I help take notes during storyboard meetings and send those out. I I also sit on executive meetings for when executives are reviewing the work of our artists. And then afterwards, when storyboards are approved, I send them over to editorial, which is where they build it all together into an animatic. And currently, that phase is kind of winding down on our show. And so I'm shifting over to what they call retakes, which is for us, we partner with an overseas studio to do our animation, and then we get that back, and then we give feedback to them, and it's kind of this iterative process to really make the animation come to life. And so that's what I'm doing right now, communicating with overseas and also with our in-house compositing artists and animators. So that is a pretty like a quick view of my journey so far and what I'm doing right now. So I think now I'd like to open the floor up to anybody who has questions. I've worked with a lot of different artists, so have a pretty good breadth of understanding, at least for 2D shows, which is the one that I'm working on.
Does anybody have any questions?
Oh, and let me type in. My show is announced. I always default to not talking about it because I forget that it is announced, but because of NDAs. But the show that I'm working on is called Gentry Chow versus the Underworld. It's a very exciting show. It's its first season, and it's aired. It's going to be on Netflix at some point. Not sure when. It's still in production.
Any questions? You know, you guys can type in the chat. Just
Yeah, feel free to type in chat or even speak up. I love chatting with people. Yeah, I think the most publicity we got was a Hollywood reporter article a while ago when we were first announced. But if any of you are like into anime or into K-pop, uh, this show is for you. Just saying, we have some pretty cool voice talent, and we have a K-pop idol as one of our voice actors, so that's really fun. Very exciting.
You said you were working on Gentry Chow. I can't. Gentry Chow? Is that how I pronounce that? Right?
Yep, Genchi Chow versus the Underworld. Yeah.
Do you have a lot of when it goes to Netflix, do you have a lot of interaction with them? How's that like?
Yeah, it kind of varies depending on the stage. Netflix was pretty hands-on at the beginning. They wanted pretty frequent check-ins with us, and the relationship between Titmouse and Netflix right now is Titmouse is a vendor studio for Netflix. That means they've kind of basically commissioned us to make the animation for them. And so originally it started at in-house in Netflix, but then they kind of handed it over to us. And so they had a little bit of trouble letting go, basically. And so normally, they check in during the storyboarding process, and they check in what they call at the first animatic stage. So usually we get through all of our storyboards, we do our internal reviews, we approve them, and then Netflix would see the first animatic stage and then give us feedback after that. But at the very beginning, they were like pretty hands-on, and they actually checked in with us during the our cleanup boards. So we usually go through first we have the script. Ours is a mostly script driven show. And so we start at the script, we go through rough storyboards, we do a pass of that, and then we do a pass of cleanup boards. And so Netflix decided to check in early, which is at the cleanup board phase. And if I remember correctly, that was like um for each episode, that would be like every 6 weeks, but we have a stacked schedule. So we would meet with Netflix once the ball got rolling. It was probably every 2 weeks or so, which was a little bit too frequently than usual for most shows. Um, but that is our relationship with Netflix for board side. For art side, to review artistic materials that's being made for the show, it's a lot less frequent. I think they have like every 2 weeks they do a very small slideshow of all the highlights of our art, but they don't see any of like the all the detailed art. They don't see every single asset. That's not super important to them. And then finally at retakes, we are just starting that process and they kind of see the first pass of animation and we're about to send that to them. So we're gonna see what they're like in this new phase. Uh, things kind of change depending on which stage of production you're in. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Do you have any advice for students trying to get internships?
Yeah, what sort of advice are you looking for?
Just anything really, like getting your foot in the door and just getting like some of these big companies or intimidating companies to just listen to you, I guess.
Mhm. I think the best way to get your foot in the door is making connections. Since you guys are not local to LA, like making these virtual connections are really, really important. So if you're curious about a certain position, I really encourage you to look at like if it's like a movie that you really like, I really encourage you to look at the credits and reach out to the artists that are on that credits list that you feel really inspired by. Lots of professionals are like pretty fun to talk to and they're really open to talking to people who want to learn. Um, if you can, reach out to recruiters as well. They'll give you some insight into the state of their current studio and what they are doing in their hiring process at the moment. So those are all things you can do to get internships. And definitely bolster your resume. That is definitely important as well. You want to have the information really clearly presented and just follow all good resume tips, um, especially for internships. If it's a production internship, the resume is key. And if you're looking for artistic internships, you really want to make sure your portfolio is strong. And you can ask various industry professionals for portfolio reviews if you're not sure if what you're doing is in the right direction.
Thank you.
Hmm?
I have a question. So,
Yeah.
when you were starting to look for a job as far as in the industry, was PA like your first like focal point, or were you hoping to get into something else and then just ended up falling in love with PA?
Definitely. Because I spent so much time researching beforehand, I really knew that production was the place that I wanted to be in. So that's why I definitely was focusing on mainly PA roles. I also did apply to a few executive assistant roles because those skills are pretty transferable, but executive assistants do something slightly different and getting into those, it depends on like they ask for varying levels of experience. Some of them actually ask for more experience than what a PA has, slightly different skills.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was still mute. Any more questions, guys? Like anybody?
Let's see, what's a day in your life like? Hectic or chill? I would say it's definitely changing now that I'm kind of getting roped into a different department. Um, the structure of my show is that we kind of work in different departments, which is it kind of depends on the TV show. Some TV shows are episodic oriented, so they'll have a production department like specifically for episode 1 and 2 and 3, and they are in their own little episode bubbles, and they do every single task related to that episode. But our show is structured where we just have our department and we do it for every single episode. So it's a little bit different. Back in story department, it was, I say it was pretty chill most of the time. We had our pitch meetings. So when storyboard artists would come and present their boards to the directors, those were generally pretty long. I would say they're a minimum of 2 hours, and sometimes, depending on what kind of sequences we're looking at, sometimes they could be longer. So I would take notes during that, and then afterwards I would send them out, follow up with artists, and then throughout like in between, depending on which stage we're at, I would also work with the storyboard revisionists who would make their boards and send them over to the editorial. So it's a mix of just like moving files over, communicating with the departments, and then also like actively sitting in meetings taking notes. Now that I'm in retakes, retakes is at least on my show, is a much more intensive process than storyboards. There's a lot more material to review. And so I'm sitting in a lot of meetings every single day. It depends on the day, but generally 2 to 3 hours of my day are in meetings. And then if it's the first time we're seeing an episode, I am gearing up for like an 8 hour meeting day. So those are uh, interesting. They're very long and tough, and you have to kind of be actively taking notes throughout the whole thing. Um, so this department is definitely a lot. It's kind of another level of communication required. But I still find it very enjoyable seeing all the thought and effort being put into the show. And I'm learning a lot to see like exactly what sorts of notes they're giving and what sorts of things are important to them. Yeah, so I say it was more chill in the beginning, but now it is not chill at all.
Um, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. Yeah, so what would you like put in a storyboard portfolio?
I don't actually see a lot of storyboard portfolios, but what I can say from the storyboards that do come up on our show and what kind of notes come back is you want to do something. Obviously, you want to put in your best work. You really shouldn't be putting anything that you're not proud of. Um, I would say some things that are really important is it depends on what kind of focus you're going for. So my show is a somewhat action-oriented show. So if you want to show off your skills as an action board artist, put some action scenes in there. Some important things for action is one, making sure perspective is correct, that body proportions are correct, and things hook up from place to place, along with telling a good story if the action is tied to your story. And then you might also want to sprinkle in some emotional driven moments to really highlight your character acting. So some things that have really clear poses and strong poses, depending on how much you want to break them down in between. But adding that clarity in the emotions of your characters is also super important. Hopefully that
Thank you.
helps a little bit.
Thank you.
Yeah, and if you have a storyboard portfolio that you would like me to review, I'm totally happy to take a look at it and give some feedback. I'm not a director or anything, but I've seen directors give notes, so I have a little bit of experience.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Oh, I also remembered something. At least for me, and also that is pretty well like also echoed throughout the animation community is uh especially for production folks, but also for artists, is really get on your LinkedIn game. LinkedIn is really, really important. Um, for artists and especially production folks, but LinkedIn is also the place where you'll be talking to recruiters the most and they'll be the most responsive. So really make a strong LinkedIn profile. If you have a website for your portfolio, make sure everything is linked properly and everything looks nice and that it's on your resume as well. I've made a lot of good connections through LinkedIn, and it's also good to keep those connections going through LinkedIn. It keeps you really connected to the industry and what's happening around and staying up to date with all the news. If any of you are curious, I will pull up my own and send it in the chat here. I need to update it now since I rolled onto a different department and I'm doing a lot of new things more than I used to. And there's a question. Do you have any tips regarding marketing yourself? Are there certain workshops or events that are good areas to form connections within the industry? Yeah, so I think LinkedIn is definitely one. And then having a nice clean website. If you're looking to go into an artistic role, having a good website that is your portfolio is really key. You want to make sure the biggest thing is that all the information is clear and that website is easy to navigate. Those are the two big things that people are going to really care about when you put your work on there. I know that some artists are on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. Um, I'm not sure of how that landscape is unfolding at the moment because of all the changes that are going on. I'm also not on Twitter myself because I'm scared of it. Um, but Instagram is also a really good place. We definitely have recruiters and we have hiring managers who are on Instagram that find really strong portfolios or good artwork and then reach out to those people for jobs. That totally happens, mostly for freelance work, but that's another good way to get your foot in the door is starting freelance and showing the industry that you can do good work. And then for workshops or events, definitely try and attend in-person events as much as you can. Although definitely I understand being like not being based in California makes that a really big struggle and honestly a really huge commitment. And so I would say try and go to as many virtual events as you can. LinkedIn again is a really good place to find like when those events are happening. So I know DreamWorks does an annual speaker series, so that's a really good event to go to. Um, let me see. I think Nickelodeon sometimes does an annual one, um, or Nickelodeon, CBS, kind of like that umbrella. Um, I think those are the big ones at the moment. And you can join Wia. Wia is a great place. They host lots of events, so reaching out to speakers and going to Wia events is honestly really amazing. I've made a lot of good connections through Wia. If you can, I really encourage you join one of the Wia mentorship circles. I myself just got out of one this past year, so I found that like a really good experience in the Wia's mentorship circles. Really are a big boost to your network. And also you can learn so much from not only your peers who are in the circle, but also your mentor. Um, Other than that, I think I also like It sounds very old, but I also was on Facebook, and so there's a lot of Facebook events that like professionals hold, and so I found a lot of good success going to those because those are much like smaller groups, and you can really get in touch with those professionals and like meet them on a one-on-one basis rather than being one name in a giant crowd of people where a lot of other events are like. You can also attend other kind of smaller organization events. There's Rise Up Animation. I'm also part of Asians in Animation. So there's all these small groups. There's Latinx in Animation. All of these small like community driven groups that are also focused on helping people break in and bringing resources to their communities. Those are all great places to Oh, there's also Black and Animated. There's a lot of them. We're all kind of connected. Um, yeah, we partner with each other quite frequently. So partnering with those or joining and being part of those communities can also really get you connected. Sorry, that was kind of a bit and I rambled. But yeah, because I joined the industry fully remote, I had to really hustle to make those connections. And so you need to be like eager and try and find any avenue you can to make those connections. Yeah, let me see if I can type in that list. Okay, there's a few of them that I listed there. Definitely try and network or attend events within your free time. Definitely like that's what I did a lot while I was in university. I was like, oh, I'm not doing homework right now, or I would specifically set aside time to attend those events because at least for me, attending university, my primary goal was to get a job. So I was like, of course I want to do well in my schoolwork, but my end goal is to get a job, so I should spend some time trying to do important things that would help me in my career. It's a hard balancing act, though. I was very stressed.
I bet.
Yeah, senior year was a bit of a doozy. Yeah, I was also doing a senior thesis. That was a lot. It was fine, though. I'm okay.
Okay, well, if we don't have any more questions, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to speak to us and answer some of our questions. For everyone, I will make sure that these organization links are in the Discord for everyone so you can look into it if you are interested. Um, but yeah, thank you again.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so sorry that I had to cut this short.
It's
Um, yeah, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I already spoke with Ashanti, but if any of you are interested in doing like a one-on-one talk, I'm totally happy to meet with any of you one-on-one and kind of go a little bit more in depth about any questions that you have. Um, yeah, totally open to that. Again, so sorry that I had to cut this short.
no problem. We hope you have a great day.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Have a good day. Bye.